In a dark forest, 10-year-old Ethan sprints through the trees, clutching an old wooden box, his heart pounding as headlights chase him through the night. He whispers, fierce and trembling, "I have to tell the truth, no matter what they do." In the quiet town of Willow Creek, a powerful man's cold smile flashes across the local news, hiding a secret that could shatter everything. When Ethan tries to expose a dangerous force, the whole town turns against him, and a web of crime unravels. What happens next will leave you speechless. Hit subscribe and ring the bell to dive into this jaw-dropping true story. In the quiet coastal town of Willow Creek, life flows gently like waves against the shore. Kids bike down Main Street. Fishermen haul their catch, and neighbors chat over diner coffee. But beneath this charm, an unseen force pulls the strings. Jacob Carter, a silver-haired man in his 50s, is the town's face of prosperity, his smile gleaming on local news as he funds football teams and opens libraries. His name marks half the businesses, grocery stores, construction firms, but whispers follow him. Those who question Carter's deals often lose jobs, businesses, or worse. Everyone knows his charm hides a ruthless grip. Ethan, a curious 10-year-old with messy brown hair, dives into Sherlock Holmes novels by flashlight, dreaming of solving mysteries. Sharp-eyed, he notices details others miss, like the diner's rattling coffee pot at 3 p.m. or seagulls avoiding the old factory ruins. He lives with his mom, Sarah, in a small apartment above the hardware store. Sarah, a grocery clerk, carries the weight of a debt from Carter's company, taken after Ethan's dad died of a strange illness. Her strained smile and sagging shoulders fuel Ethan's resolve to help. Each weekend, Ethan sweeps floors at Mr. Henry's antique shop, a cluttered haven of dusty lamps and chipped teacups. Old Henry, with thick glasses and a warm chuckle, pays Ethan a few bucks, which he gives to Sarah. There, Ethan feels like a detective, sensing secrets in every trinket. He's close with Mia, a 16-year-old with a YouTube channel exploring Willow Creek's mysteries, haunted barns, lost shipwrecks. Ethan, her biggest fan, pitches video ideas, dreaming she'll go viral. One chilly Saturday, while sweeping the shop's storeroom, Ethan's broom catches a loose floorboard. Behind warped books, he finds a wooden box, dusty and locked, untouched for decades. His heart races. This is a Sherlock find. He shows Henry, but the old man's warmth vanishes. "Don't touch it, Ethan," Henry says, his voice sharp, almost scared. "It's dangerous." Ethan's curiosity flares. Dangerous? In a dusty shop? That night, Ethan can't sleep, replaying Henry's reaction. Monday, when Henry steps out, Ethan grabs the spare key, hands trembling. He kneels by the box, its lock clicking open. Inside are yellowed letters tied with twine, a faded photo of a young woman with piercing eyes, and a scribbled note. The 1995 fire wasn't an accident. They covered up. Ethan's breath catches. The factory fire, blamed on bad wiring, is Willow Creek legend. But these letters hint at a darker truth. Ethan's no longer just a kid. He's on the edge of a mystery that could unravel his town. Ethan slipped into the apartment, the wooden box hidden under his jacket. In the dim living room, Sarah hunched over bills, her brow furrowed. Ethan hesitated, then set the box on the kitchen table, its dusty surface clashing with chipped mugs and unpaid notices. "Mom, you need to see this," he whispered. Sarah's tired eyes narrowed as he opened the box, revealing yellowed letters, a faded photo, and a note about the 1995 fire. They untied the twine, the paper crackling as they read. The letters, penned by Anna, Mr. Henry's vanished sister, told a chilling tale. Jacob Carter's factory dumped toxic chemicals into Willow Creek's water, sickening residents with persistent coughs and fevers. Anna wrote of a fire in '95, officially an accident, but, in her words, a torch to bury the truth. One smudged letter hit Ethan hard. "They threatened me to leave town or lose everything." Sarah's hand shook, her face pale. "Ethan, this is dangerous," she said sharply. Carter holds our loan. We could lose everything. Tell no one. Ethan's stomach twisted, seeing his mom's fear, her fingers gripping the table. But his detective's heart, fueled by thoughts of his dad's death from a strange illness, roared. He nodded, promising silence, but his mind raced like Sherlock facing Moriarty. Before school, he stuffed the letters into his backpack and biked to the police station, the boxes weight heavy on his mind. The station smelled of coffee and old paper. Officer Harris, a young cop with a gleaming badge, leaned over the counter. Ethan, barely tall enough to see over it, pushed the letters forward, spilling Anna's story, toxic water, the fire. Harris listened, then patted Ethan's shoulder. "Good job, kid," he said. "This is for grown-ups now. Focus on school." Ethan left with hope, picturing Harris uncovering Carter's secrets. But weeks passed with no news, no police at the factory ruins. He called Harris, voice shaky. "Any updates?" Harris's reply was vague. "We're handling it." Ethan, the words stung, like his discovery was a childish game. In his room, staring at his worn Sherlock Holmes book, Ethan muttered, "A detective doesn't wait." He needed an ally who wouldn't dismiss him. He turned to Mia, his 16-year-old friend with a YouTube channel. Late at night, under his desk lamp, Ethan photographed Anna's letters, sending them to Mia. "This is big. Can you post it?" Mia replied instantly. "Insane. I'm on it." Her video, avoiding Carter's name, shared letter snippets and urged locals to share info about the 95 fire. Ethan watched it go live, heart racing as views climbed, hundreds then thousands. He felt he was finally exposing Anna's truth, but a chill hit him. He didn't know it yet, but he'd stirred a hornet's nest, and trouble was coming. Mia's bedroom glowed with the soft hum of her laptop as she worked late into the night, her voice steady as she recorded. "Willow Creek deserves the truth about the 1995 factory fire," she said, reading snippets of Anna's letters, careful not to name Jacob Carter. "If you know anything, share it. Let's uncover what happened." She hit publish, and by morning, the video was spreading across Willow Creek like a spark in dry grass. Ethan couldn't stop checking his phone at school, watching the view counts soar, 10,000, then 20, then 50,000 in just days. Whispers filled the hallways, kids sneaking glances at their screens, even teachers stealing looks. Ethan's heart swelled. He and Mia were doing it, bringing Anna's story to light, like detectives cracking a case. But that spark of pride flickered fast. By the third day, Ethan's phone buzzed with a chilling message from an unknown number. "Stop digging, or your mom's in trouble." His hands froze, the chatter of the playground fading. He read it again, his pulse hammering, and stuffed the phone away, fear curling in his gut. That evening, he biked to Mr. Henry's antique shop, needing someone to confide in. But when he arrived, the shop's front window was a jagged hole, glass scattered across the sidewalk like broken stars. Inside, shelves lay toppled, old clocks and vases smashed on the floor. Henry sat on a stool, a bandage on his arm, his face pale and trembling. "They came last night," he said, his voice barely a whisper, eyes darting to the door. "Didn't steal anything, just wrecked the place." Ethan's throat tightened. "Oh, Mr. Henry," he asked, dreading the answer. Henry's gaze dropped. "That box you found. I told you it was trouble. I knew what Anna was after, but I stayed quiet. They threatened my family, Ethan. They always do." Ethan's mind spun, anger mixing with fear. He wanted to press Henry, but the old man reached under the counter, pulling out a scratched, faded USB drive. "Anna left this before she disappeared," Henry said, his hands shaking as he handed it to Ethan. "It's a video. I never had the guts to watch it, but you're braver than me." Ethan gripped the USB, his heart pounding with a mix of dread and resolve. He raced home, locking his door before Sarah could see the fire in his eyes. He called Mia, and they met at her house, plugging the USB into her laptop. Anna's face filled the screen, her voice sharp and urgent. "Carter paid to burn the factory down," she said, staring into the camera. "He knew the chemicals were poisoning people. I confronted him, and he told me to leave town or I'd pay." The video cut off, leaving Ethan and Mia frozen, their breath shallow. This was no longer just a mystery. It was a crime that had silenced Anna and hurt countless others. Mia's eyes blazed. "We're posting this," she said, opening her YouTube dashboard. But a notification flashed. Her channel was suspended for copyright violations. She clicked frantically, but the account was locked, their first video gone. "This isn't random," Mia hissed, her voice tight with anger. "Someone's trying to stop us." That night, Sarah stormed into the apartment, her face a storm of fury and fear, waving a pink slip from the grocery store. "I'm fired." "Ethan," she shouted, her voice breaking. "Carter's company owns that place, and now we've got nothing. Do you want us homeless?" Ethan's heart sank, guilt crashing over him. He saw his mom's trembling hands, her eyes red from tears, and remembered his dad's fevered face in those final days. Had the poison water taken him too? "I told you drop that box," Sarah said, sinking onto the couch. "Why won't you listen?" Ethan wanted a break, to promise he'd stop, but Anna's words burned in his mind, fierce and unyielding. He couldn't let Carter bury the truth again. Late that night, as Sarah slept, he slipped the USB into his backpack, his fingers tracing its edges. He didn't know how, but he'd make sure Anna's voice was heard, no matter the cost. Trouble was brewing, and Ethan was ready to face it head-on. Ethan's sneakers crunched along the gravel path to Mrs. Clara's cottage, a sagging house at Willow Creek's edge, its yard tangled with wildflowers. The USB from Henry weighed heavy in his backpack, next to Anna's letters, each step fueled by the sting of his mom's tears and the wrecked antique shop. Ethan needed answers, and Clara, with her raspy cough and knowing eyes, was his next hope. She'd worked at Carter's factory before the '95 fire, her lungs scarred from years of breathing tainted air. Ethan knocked, his heart thumping. Clara opened the door, her frail frame wrapped in a worn shawl, and waved him to a creaky chair. "You're Henry's kid," she said, her voice rough but kind. "What's got you so serious?" Ethan poured out the story, Anna's letters, the toxic water, the fire meant to hide it all. Clara's face tightened, her gaze drifting to a faded photo on her mantle, showing her younger self with factory co-workers. "I kept something," she said softly, shuffling to a locked drawer. She pulled out a worn folder, stuffed with Anna's notes, lab reports proving chemicals in the water, a list of workers struck down by illness, their names in Anna's hurried scrawl. "She gave me these before she vanished," Clara said, coughing into a handkerchief. "Said to keep them safe. But Carter's got eyes everywhere. Ethan, even in the police. Watch your back." Ethan's pulse raced. Clara's old fire sparked as she agreed to help, but her warning hung heavy. Willow Creek wasn't safe. At the library, Ethan and Mia hunched over Clara's documents. The lab reports showing toxin levels high enough to explain the fevers that had stolen Ethan's dad, his eyes haunted in those final days. They mailed the water samples to an independent lab in the next city, far from Carter's reach, Ethan watching the package vanish into the mail slot with a flicker of hope. But the wait was brutal, each day stretching his nerves thin. Clara's words about Carter's eyes gnawed at him. One afternoon, grabbing a soda at the town cafe, Ethan froze at a familiar voice. Officer Harris sat in a corner, talking low to a man in a dark jacket. Ethan edged closer, heart pounding. "Don't worry," Harris said, his tone sharp. "I told the chief the kid's making it up. No investigation's happening." The man slid an envelope across the table. Ethan's blood ran cold. Harris, the cop he'd trusted, was part of Carter's web, burying Anna's truth. Ethan bolted to Mia's house, his voice shaking. "Harris is with Carter," he said, pacing her cluttered room. "We can't trust the cops." Mia's jaw clenched, her fingers tapping her laptop. "Then we bypassed them," she said. With her YouTube channel locked, they turned to a small online forum where locals swapped rumors. Mia uploaded Anna's video, titled Willow Creek's Hidden Truth, keeping her names off it. But the forum was quiet, the video scraping just a few hundred views from curious teens and conspiracy nuts. It wasn't enough to shake the town. Ethan's frustration boiled. He'd hoped Anna's voice would roar, not whisper. That night, Biking through the woods, the USB and Anna's box in his backpack, Ethan felt the air grow thick. Headlights flared behind him, and two men stepped out, faces shadowed. "Give us the drive, kid," one growled, his voice low and menacing. Ethan's heart slammed against his ribs. He pedaled hard, veering off the path, branches whipping his face. The men chased, boots pounding, but Ethan knew these woods, every twist, every hideout. He dove behind an oak, clutching the box, his breath ragged, just like that night you saw at the start. The men cursed, their lights fading. Ethan stayed still, hands trembling but grip firm. He thought of his dad's last days, too weak to hold his hand. Carter's web was closing in, but Ethan wouldn't let go of the truth. Ethan sat on Willow Creek's old pier, staring at the water, his mind heavy with doubt. Had he pushed too far, risking his mom's safety? The USB and Anna's letters weighed in his backpack, a reminder of the truth he couldn't let go. As the sun sank, a gravelly voice broke his thoughts. "You're Ethan, right?" Mr. James, a retired cop with a weathered face and a worn baseball cap, stood nearby, his eyes kind but sharp. Ethan nodded, wary but desperate for an ally. James sat beside him, gazing at the horizon. "Heard about your video," he said. "I got forced out of the force years ago for asking about that factory fire. Carter's got friends in high places, kid, including Chief Donaldson." Ethan's breath caught, the sting of Harris's betrayal still fresh. James pulled a yellow document from his jacket, a 1995 police report detailing toxic dumping at Carter's factory. "They told me to shred this or lose my badge," James said, his voice steady. "I kept it. If you find more evidence, I'll testify, but it's got to be rock solid." Ethan's heart lifted, hope cutting through his despair. This report was proof Anna wasn't alone in her fight. Proof the water that might have taken his dad's life wasn't just a bad break. But when he got home, Sarah was waiting, her eyes red and voice shaking. "Give me that USB, Ethan," she demanded. "We're turning it over to the police before we lose everything." Ethan saw the fear crushing her, the debt to Carter's company a shadow over their lives. He thought of his dad, too weak to hold his hand in those final days, and wondered if the poisoned water was to blame. "Okay, Mom," he said softly, pulling a fake USB from his pocket, one he prepared just in case. His fingers brushed the real one hidden in his backpack, guilt twisting his gut. He hated lying, but Anna's truth, the town's truth, was bigger than his fear. At school, the weight of his suspension hit hard. Chief Donaldson's press conference played on the news, his stern voice calling Ethan and Mia's video a fabrication meant to disrupt our community. The crowd nodded, trusting the man who'd patrolled their streets for years. Ethan watched from home, his stomach churning, no longer just a kid with a mystery, but a target. Mrs. Ellen, a school board member and Carter's close ally, made it worse. On the evening news, her pearl necklace gleamed as she sneered. Sarah's failed as a mother, letting her son spread lies. "We need order, not chaos." Sarah gripped the couch, her face flushed with shame. The next day, Ethan's principal summoned him. "You're suspended for a week," she said coldly. "Spreading fake news about respected people is serious." Ethan stared at the floor, the words burning his ears. He hadn't lied. And his letters, the lab results, they were real. But Willow Creek was closing in, and Ethan felt trapped. James's report was a lifeline, but he needed more to break Carter's grip. He clutched the hidden USB, his resolve hardening. The truth was out there, and he'd find it, no matter who stood in his way. Ethan huddled with Mia, Clara, and James in Clara's cramped living room, the air thick with the smell of old books and determination. The lab results, Anna's video, and James's buried police report lay spread out on the coffee table. But they needed more to topple Carter's empire. James, his weathered face set, suggested a risky plan: sneak into the old factory office, a crumbling relic on the edge of Willow Creek where Carter still kept records. "If there's proof of his dirty deals, it's there," James said, his voice low. Ethan's heart raced, part fear, part thrill. This was the kind of mission Sherlock would take on. Clara's eyes gleamed with defiance, and Mia nodded, her phone ready to record anything they found. They mapped it out. James knew the factory's layout from his cop days, and Clara had an old key from her time working there. They'd go at midnight, when the town slept. Under a moonless sky, the four crept toward the factory ruins, its rusted skeleton looming like a ghost. Ethan's sneakers crunched on broken glass as they slipped through a side door, Clara's key turning with a reluctant groan. Inside, the air was stale, heavy with dust and secrets. Flashlights danced across filing cabinets and scattered papers. Ethan's pulse pounded as he rifled through folders, his hand shaking. Mia found it first, a contract between Carter's company and a shady chemical firm, detailing illegal waste dumping. Signed in Carter's bold scrawl. Then Ethan spotted a laptop, its screen cracked but still functional. He powered it on, and there, in a hidden folder, were emails between Carter and Chief Donaldson. One read, "Shred the fire report. The usual payments in your account." Ethan's breath caught. This was the smoking gun. But a flashlight beam sliced through the darkness, and a guard's gruff voice barked, "Who's there?" Ethan froze, clutching the contract. Mia, quick as lightning, hit record on her phone as the guard lunged toward them. "Carter told us to destroy anything tied to Anna," the guard muttered, not realizing his words were being captured. James shoved Ethan behind a cabinet, whispering, "Run." Ethan bolted, the contract stuffed in his jacket, but the guard's hand grazed his arm, nearly snagging him. Mia and Clara slipped out a back exit, James leading the way, and they vanished into the night. Hearts pounding. Back at Clara's, Mia played the guard's recorded confession, her eyes wide. "This changes everything," she said. They wasted no time. Mia set up a new YouTube channel, uploading everything. Anna's video exposing the fire, James's 1995 report, the lab results, the contract, the emails, and the guard's damning words. Titled, "Willow Creek's Toxic Truth." The video exploded, racking up millions of views in days. Big city reporters called, their voicemails piling up. The town buzzed, and a community meeting was called at the town hall, packed to the rafters. Carter and Donaldson stood at the front, faces tight, dismissing the evidence as a childish prank. Ethan, in the back row, felt his knees shake but stood up, his voice small but clear. "This isn't a prank," he said, holding up his phone to play Anna's video on the hall's projector. Her words filled the room, accusing Carter of poisoning the town. Gasps rippled through the crowd. James stepped forward, his voice steady but fierce. "Donaldson took bribes to bury the truth," he said, pointing at the chief. "I saw it. Those emails prove it." The room erupted, voices shouting for justice, some chanting Anna's name. Carter's polished smile faltered, and Donaldson's face turned ashen. Ethan stood tall, a 10-year-old kid staring down a giant, knowing the town would never be the same. The town hall meeting left Willow Creek buzzing with anger, Ethan's stand shaking the town's core. Within days, national news outlets amplified the story, their headlines screaming about corruption and poison in a small town. Public outcry pushed the FBI to act, their black SUVs rolling into Willow Creek like a storm. Agents poured over Ethan and Mia's evidence. Anna's video, James's 1995 report, the lab results, the contract, the emails, and the guard's confession. Each piece nailed shut the case against Jacob Carter's empire. Weeks later, the news broke. Carter and Chief Donaldson were arrested, charged with evidence tampering, bribery, and environmental crimes. Handcuffs snapped on Carter's wrists, his polished charm replaced by a scowl. Donaldson, once the town's hero, hung his head as cameras flashed. Willow Creek watched, stunned, as Anna's truth finally broke free. Sarah stood in their tiny apartment, tears of relief streaming down her face. The grocery store called, offering her job back with an apology. Carter's shadow was gone. A community fund, sparked by Mia's viral video, raised enough to clear their debt. Sarah hugged Ethan, her voice soft. "I was scared, but you were right to fight." Ethan's heart swelled with a quiet strength. Then came the moment that changed it all. Anna returned to Willow Creek, stepping off a bus into a packed town square. Her eyes found Ethan, and she ran to him, wrapping him in a fierce hug. "You gave me my justice," she said, her voice breaking, the crowd roaring with cheers. Ethan, shy but smiling, felt hope flood his chest. No longer the timid kid hiding in books, Ethan became a symbol of courage. At school, he started the Junior Detectives Club, kids gathering in the library to learn how to ask tough questions. Mia filmed it, grinning, calling him Willow Creek's Sherlock. The town launched a cleanup to purify its water, funded by donations pouring in. Near the factory ruins, a park rose, its sign reading Anna's Grove for the victims who'd suffered in silence. At its opening, Ethan took the stage, his voice steady. "The truth doesn't care if you're big or strong," he said. "It just needs you to keep going." The crowd erupted, clapping until the trees shook. Clara, James, and Mia stood by him, beaming. A big city journalist's article, "The Kid Detective Who Changed a Town," spread Ethan's story far beyond Willow Creek, a testament to a boy who wouldn't quit. Ethan's journey sent shivers through Willow Creek, a tale of a 10-year-old kid who unraveled a web of crime that shook a town to its core. From a dusty box in an antique shop to facing down a tycoon's lies, Ethan proved one thing. The truth doesn't care how small you are, it only demands you fight for it. His courage turned a quiet coastal town into a beacon of justice. Want more stories that'll keep you on the edge of your seat? Hit that subscribe button, ring the bell, and share this video to spread Ethan's message. Stay tuned for the next unbelievable true story.